Now moving on, we are having the next point, that is the biomacromolecules. Okay, biomacromolecules. Now the biomacromolecules, why do we call them as biomacromolecules? Because they are large in molecular mass or molecular weight, right? Yes. So now they say that they haven't mentioned that you see that there are two types of fractions. The first one we are having is the acid soluble fraction. Okay, if you remember from our first class, we had determined the main important substances by grinding the cells or tissue into the trichloroacetic acid, and we got two types of fraction. The first is called as the acid soluble fraction, and one more we are having is the acid insoluble fraction. That is what we determined, right? So now generally the acid soluble pool is having the molecular weight of around 18 to 800 Daltons. Right? Any substance or any chemical or any molecule that is present in the acid soluble pool, it is known to have a molecular weight of around 18 to 800 Daltons, right? And similarly, the acid insoluble pool mainly includes the proteins, polysaccharides, nucleic acids, and the lipids. Okay, these are mainly belonging into the acid insoluble pool. Okay, now any biomolecule, they have mentioned, right? Any biomolecule whose mass or whose molecular weight is less than the 1000 Daltons, we refer these molecules as the micromolecules. We refer them as what? Micromolecules, right? So in other terms, any biomolecule, right, is having more than 1000 Daltons of mass, then we can refer them as the biomacromolecule, right? Yes, this is what we can determine by the term biomicromolecule and biomacromolecules. Okay, if the molecular weight is less than the 1000 Daltons, then we refer them as the micromolecules, and if the biomolecule molecular weight or mass is more than 1000 Daltons, then we can refer them as the biomacromolecules, right? So roughly speaking, if you have to identify the biomacromolecules, okay, protein is a biomacromolecule, polysaccharide is a biomacromolecule, nucleic acid, and so is also lipid. We call them as what? Biomacromolecules. But however, there is an exception to this particular rule, and that is mainly the lipids. Okay, lipids are very interesting in nature, because we say that their molecular weight, their molecular weight or mass is not more than, okay, is not more than 800 Daltons, right? Their molecular weight is not more than 800 Daltons, right? But however, just a moment ago, we said that any molecule is having more than 1000 or thousands of Dalton as the molecular mass. We say them as what? Biomacromolecules. Then why do lipids are exception to this particular rule, right? And they also appear, okay, not area, appear. They also appear in the acid insoluble fraction. Okay, so now when you grind the tissue with the buffer, that is the trichloroacetic acid, we observed that not only nucleic acid, polysaccharides, and proteins, even lipids also appeared in the acid insoluble fraction. Okay, so now in the acid insoluble fraction, we also mentioned that all of the molecules are having more than 1000 Daltons of molecular mass. But lipids, you have seen that it is less than or doesn't even cross 800 Daltons, right? Now, the reason why the lipids actually appear in the what we can say acid insoluble fraction of the pool, because lipids are the major constituents in the cell membranes, right? In the cell membranes, right? Yes, lipids, though they are present as lipid molecules in the cell, but they are the major constituents in the case of cell membranes. So what happens is that grinding the tissue basically breaks the cell membrane, breaks the plasma membrane or the cell membrane, all mean the same. Okay, it basically disrupts or breaks the plasma membrane, right? So now what happens as a result of breaking of plasma membrane is that the lipids which are mainly present in the cell membrane, they mainly form the vesicles. Right? Vesicles are, as we all know, in the cell, they are small bubble-like structures. Right? These are called as the vesicles. And these vesicles actually appear in the acid soluble pool. Okay, and they are also, as we know, lipids are mainly water insoluble. We also know that it is water insoluble, right? Yes, lipids are completely water insoluble in nature. As a result, what happens is that they mainly appear in the acid insoluble pool. So strictly speaking, we can say that the lipids are not macromolecules. Okay, I just made a mistake. It is not acid soluble, it is acid insoluble pool, right? It is mainly acid insoluble pool. So grinding the tissue mainly breaks the cell membrane or the plasma membrane, and not only a lipid is present in the directly cell membrane or plasma membrane, also the membraned organelles. Even in the case of membrane organelles, right? Even in the membrane organelles, you also see that lipid is one of the major constituent, right? So grinding the tissue breaks the plasma membrane and also the membrane constituent of the organelles, and they basically result in the formation of small vesicles. And these vesicles, as they're completely made up of lipids, they are water insoluble, and they precipitate or they finally are formed in the acid insoluble pool. Okay, yes, so it is mainly acid insoluble pool. So strictly speaking, we can say that based upon the molecular mass, okay, if you consider the molecular mass, the mass is around 800 Daltons. Okay, so from the mass perspective, we can say that lipids are not biomacromolecules. Remember, okay, from the molecular weight or molecular mass perspective, we can say that lipids are not actually macromolecules or biomacromolecules, only because they are water insoluble, and grinding results in breaking of cell membrane, and they precipitate or they result in the formation of what we can say vesicles, and they finally land in the acid insoluble pool. Okay, that is why we can say that lipids appear in the acid insoluble pool. This is an explanation that we have to remember for our discussion. Now, if you take the cell, if you consider the cell, okay, we mainly find two types of constituents. The first one we are having is the cytoplasmic constituents or cytoplasmic components, and one more we are having is the organelles and also the macromolecules. So now in a cell, the cytoplasm, we call it as the cytoplasmic constituents is mainly referred as the acid soluble fraction or acid soluble pool. But whereas the macromolecules and the organelles, we call them as the acid insoluble pool, right? So they may ask you the question stating that which of the following cellular component or constituent is actually acid soluble or acid insoluble, right? It is the macromolecules and the organelles that belong to the acid insoluble pool, and the acid soluble pool mainly consists of cytoplasm. Yes. So now here we are having another table that basically shows your what we can say the components inside the cell, okay, and also what amount or what percentage they are found in the cellular mass. Okay, what is what is the contribution, what is the percentage of contribution, they are found in the cellular mass, right? So for example, if you consider water, okay, water, we all know ultimately cytoplasm is made up of water itself, okay, and it is around 70 to 90% of the constituent, okay. In a cell, around 70 to 90% is completely the water that you find. And the next one we are having is the proteins. And as you can see, the proteins are the next major constituent present in the cells, okay. They contribute around 10 to 15%. And carbohydrates contribute around 3%, okay. And lipids contribute around 2%. And 5 to 7%, you see that it is mainly the nucleic acid, that is the genetic material, DNA and RNA. And finally, we are having ions, okay. So here, if you have to choose which of the following is acid soluble and acid insoluble, you can say that water and ions are actually acid soluble, right? They're mainly acid soluble. And finally, proteins, lipids, carbohydrates and nucleic acids, we can refer them as acid insoluble pool. They mainly appear in the acid insoluble pool. So this is quite a clear concept, okay. So again, you may expect the match the following kind of question where they may tell about the component and you have to match with respect to the respective percentage. Although the question has not appeared based upon my observation, mainly on this part, but remember, you have to remember this. It is an important table that you have to remember at any cost, okay. As I said, try to go with the component and the table as much as possible. Write and practice. That is the best way, right? So now let us look on to the next one, that is the polysaccharides. Let us look into the polysaccharides. Now, polysaccharides, the term poly means that it mainly means many, and the term saccharides mainly means sugar, okay. And polysaccharides are actually group of carbohydrates, remember, okay. Now, carbohydrates, we can classify them into mainly three basic categories. We classify carbohydrates into three broad categories. The first one we are having is monosaccharides, okay, monosaccharides. And next one we are having is the oligosaccharides, right? And finally we are having the last one, that is the polysaccharides. Yes. So again, mono means single sugar, oligo means 2 to 10 sugar units will mainly make us the oligosaccharides. And if it is more than 3 or 4, okay, continuous, more than 3 to 4 and 10, we call them as what? The polysaccharides, okay. So though we will not be discussing about the monosaccharides and oligosaccharides, okay, we will be mainly concentrating on polysaccharides. I just thought of mentioning the basic classification of the carbohydrates. So now, polysaccharides, as I said, they are mainly made up of many multiple sugar units. Hence, they are called as the polysaccharides. That is what they tell us here. Long chain of sugars, that is the monosaccharides. Okay. So what happens is that if I take one sugar, okay, and link it with another sugar, and similarly I will add one more sugar, and similarly I will add another sugar, and so on, we can say that this is actually a polysaccharide. Okay, what you're looking over here is simple linking of one sugar with the another will result in the formation of what? Polysaccharides. And in most of the cases, general of the cases, you see that polysaccharides are generally homopolymer, right? They are mainly homopolymer. Now, what do you mean by homopolymer? Okay, generally we are having two kinds of terms. The first is called as the heteropolymer, okay, and one more we are having is the homopolymer. Homopolymer means that if they are made up of identical identical sugar units. Okay, if they are made up of identical sugar units, it means that for example, let me take one sugar, that is the glucose. Okay, I will link one more glucose. Okay, similarly I will link one more glucose, another glucose, and so on, right? So if you consider this polysaccharide, you can see that it is just made up of glucose, 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 and so on with n number of glucose, right? So such kind of polysaccharide which is made up of a same or a similar or identical sugar units, we call it as the polysaccharides. Right? Hence, in most of the cases, major of the cases, as I mentioned, the polysaccharides are a homopolymer. It doesn't mean that you don't find any kind of heteropolymers or heteropolysaccharides. You do find. Okay, if you have to give an example for a heteropolysaccharide, we are having a chondroitin. Okay, chondroitin is an example for a heteropolysaccharide. Heteropolysaccharide, right? Yes, it is an example for a heteropolysaccharide. It is made up of different units of sugars. Okay, it is not made up of single identical monosaccharides, right? Yes. So thus we can say that they are mainly homopolymer in nature. And here we are having examples. That is, first one we are having is the cellulose, okay, which is mainly made up of glucose. Okay, and two more examples which are similar to cellulose in the sense mainly with respect to the sugar unit that is mainly used. Okay, starch and glycogen. Okay, starch and glycogen. Now remember, starch and glycogen are also similar to cellulose, but the main difference is that the starch is mainly used as the storage material, food storage material in the case of plant cells, and glycogen is mainly used as a storage material in the case of the animal cells. Okay, so broadly speaking, we can say that cellulose, okay, it is mainly present in the plant, okay, cell wall, and starch, okay, it is mainly used as a food storage. Okay, and finally we are having is the glycogen. It is also similarly in the case of food storage. Okay, but however this food storage is observed in the case of animal cells, right? This is mainly used in the case of plants, mainly used in the case of what? Plants, right? Yes. So now all of these three, what you're looking over here is actually used, the monosaccharide that is used for in the cellulose, starch, and glycogen is the glucose. In all of these three polysaccharides, the monomer, that is the sugar unit that is found, is the glucose, right? Yes. But however, what makes a cellulose different than the starch, and what makes a glycogen different than from the starch and the cellulose? Okay, the nature of bonding. Nature of bonding, right? Yes. I will try to discuss about the nature of bonding in the next class. Okay, I will not discuss about here, but however, just remember one thing, the types of bond you find in the case of generally for our example is alpha 1,4, okay, or alpha 1,6, and one more we are having is beta 1,4 and beta 1,6. Okay, and these bonds are actually called as the glycosidic bonds. We call them as the glycosidic bonds, right? So we will discuss about the nature of bonding shortly in the next class. So here the cellulose and the starch and the glycogen basically differs. Okay, all of them differs in the nature of bonding. The difference between these molecules is that nature of bonding. And interestingly, one more point that we have to remember of the glycogen is that it is a branched polysaccharide. It is a branched polysaccharide. Yes, this is an important aspect that you have to remember. Unlike in the case of cellulose and starch, both of them are actually linear, okay? Linear in the sense just like a straight line. But however, glycogen is a branched, what we can say, polysaccharide, okay? There will be multiple branch points. Okay, so branch points and all there again, as I said, it is advanced biology concept. Don't worry about that. Okay, so glycogen is actually a branched polysaccharide, but however, cellulose and starch, both of them are actually linear polysaccharides. Okay, now similarly, one more we can say homopolymer in the case of polysaccharide is the inulin, which is made up of multiple units of fructose. It is mainly made up of multiple units of fructose. Remember this. So now, when it comes to the chemical behavior or chemical property of the polysaccharides, you say that the right end of the chain is called as the reducing end and the left end of the chain is called as the non-reducing end. Okay. Now, non-reducing or reducing is mainly called because of treatment with one kind of reagent called as the Benedict's reagent. Okay. Benedict's reagent, right? So now I hope you people might be remembering about the Benedict's reagent in your biology practicals, right? So in the first year practicals, you people might have done the test of biomolecules, for example protein test, okay, glucose test, and also you may have done some lipid test also. I don't think lipid test is present, but generally protein test and a carbohydrate test, that is the starch test, what you people will do. Okay, the appearance of what kind of color? Brick red color. Okay, the appearance of a brick red color indicates that it is actually a reducing, okay, it is actually a reducing sugar, right? This is what the conclusion actually you come into across. So it is mainly because the Benedict's sugar reduces that particular the Benedict's reagent reduces that particular sugar. Okay, that is whatever sugar you are testing. So there are what we can say reducing sugars and non-reducing sugars also. Okay, so for example, glucose is an example for reducing sugar. Starch is also an example for reducing sugar. Remember that. Yeah, so we can say that if you consider the chain of a polysaccharide, the right end is actually what we can say the left end is actually a non-reducing part, and the right end is actually what we can say reducing part over here. Okay, now if you consider starch for our discussion, it actually forms a helical structure. Okay, and helical in the sense a spring-like structure is called as the helical structure. Okay, it is called as the helical structure. Because the starch can behave in a helical way, it can actually bind to iodine and it results in the formation of a blue color. Okay, but however, cellulose can't hold iodine, okay, because or due to no helical structure formation. Okay, there is no formation of helical structures in the case of cellulose. Okay, so again, these 2 points are important. Okay, they may ask you which of the following statement is true or not true, or regarding the cellulose. Okay, cellulose can't hold iodine. Why? They may ask. Okay, because it does not form any kind of helical structures. Now, finally, let us look into some examples of the polysaccharides. Again, cellulose, as we have discussed, it is mainly found in the case of a plant cell wall, right? And there are some chemically complex modified sugars. Okay, for example, glucosamine, and one more we are having is the N-acetyl glucosamine. Okay, so these are complex chemical sugars, okay, where there will be certain modifications done to the carbon moiety or carbon structure of that particular sugar. Okay, yes, again we can say that these are all modification of glucose only. And finally, we find one more homopolymer. Again, chitin is also what? A homopolymer. Remember this. It is also homopolymer. Okay, it is a homopolymer of N-acetyl galactosamine. Right, remember this. It is a homopolymer of N-acetyl galactosamine. Okay, and chitin is mainly found in the exoskeleton of arthropods. At the same time, chitin is also found in the cell wall of fungi. Right, it is also found in the cell wall of the fungi. So these are some of the important points about the polysaccharides that you people have to remember.